I don't know if many of you know, but it was almost 1 year ago, last month, it was 1 year ago, that I stood right here in front of you and asked you to support me and asked to choose me or to narrow me down to 3. There were 4 other men that were here, and certainly they were well qualified, and I just want to thank you, I think, for doing this. No, let me tell you, I have enjoyed what I have been doing. I don't think I would have enjoyed it prior to this year. I've heard the stories of the Democrats being in control and in many cases not being treated in the best manner of which you would expect to be treated. Hopefully that has not been the case this time. I hope that we have treated them in a much better manner than they treated those that were there previously. So even though we still want to make decisions, we've given them their time as far as giving their rebuttal, but when the time comes for a vote, it's time to get down to business. But a year ago I was here. To give you an idea of, I don't know that I could have written a book and have written out what's happened in our life at the Lee House in the last 12 months. But prior to that, I just completed a campaign for the City Commission and was serving in my first year of the second term. And then stood here in front of you and asked you to select me to go to Montgomery for the next level. Well, as soon as we finished here, within a week, my daughter and I, we actually had a trip planned for about a year for a father-daughter trip, and it was on the East Coast, and I'm glad we spent that week together because that was probably the longest time we've been able to spend together in the last 12 months, so it was a very valuable time. And that particular Friday, we're supposed to come in on Sunday, and that particular Friday I received a phone call from Montgomery, and they asked me to be in Montgomery for a meeting for the next Monday. We flew in Sunday night, and Monday morning I got up and was able to be there early. Didn't know that was the first of many trips that were coming throughout the next year. But had the opportunity to walk in and meet Mike Hubbard for the first time and see him for the first time. And of course in the campaign, people say a lot of things. There were some that claimed that we had this whole thing planned out for months and months and months. Well, it's amazing how you can plan something out. You've never spoken to anyone or even seen them. So that was my first time in the room. When I walked in, there were 7 or 8 people sitting around the table, and conference call had about, I think he said 12 or 15 people, with people throughout the state. That's pretty intense to have questions shot at you from all over the state. You have no idea who's even asking you the questions. But went through, was able to go through that, received a phone call that afternoon, or pretty quickly after I left, and I was told that I was chosen. So immediately, that was 3rd week in July, maybe, had to start a campaign to catch up. Basically, I had 3 months to campaign for the spot, where my opponent had been campaigning since January. That's very difficult, but that's where you came along. Many of you stood up and helped me, and I want to tell you thank you. The Republican women, literally made thousands of phone calls during that time, and had it not been for them, that it would have been a very difficult time, because Ellen and I, we'd meet at Ray's and walk and do all the things. We had all kind of friends helping. We'd come in, go over there that night or afternoon, and they'd been making phone calls, and they would give me the results of what it was looking like. Well, it looked good, but it just, and every once in a while you have a day, oh, that doesn't look good. We'd have to get out and go to work and even do more. But thank you for doing that, because many of you were there doing it. Immediately after the election was over with, had to go to a special session. And I'll tell you, I did not know the importance of that special session at the time, as I do today. That was a session that was basically dealing with ethics, and I thought, well, there were people saying, well, it could wait and it could wait. I didn't really have a strong opinion. I knew I just worked hard to get elected, and I was going to do what I needed to do. Well, looking back, it's probably the most important week that we've spent in session in quite some time. During that time, some of the things that we addressed. I'm going to go through, just highlight some of those and then what we did during the year. But for example, the pack-to-pack. And I think I've spoken with you and talked to you about pack-to-pack transfers. As of today, we passed a bill where there cannot be any more pack-to-pack transfers. And you can give to a pack, and that pack give to a candidate. But you cannot, what would happen is you give to a pack, and it may run through 3, 4, 5, 6 packs, and you don't know who gave the money. Which I think that's one of the things I like to know, who's supporting the candidate that's running. Gives you a good idea, good indication of where do they stand, what do they think, or what kind of person are they. So that,
really?
Yeah.
Really, what kind of person?
Right. So we did that bill, passed that bill, so we stopped that, promoted that, and the pack-to-pack is now illegal. We limited the lobbyist, the amounts. At the time when I got up there, I believe the number was $250 a day that a lobbyist could actually give me, and there are several hundred lobbyists. You know, you could make a pretty good living just off of that. And if you really wanted to milk the thing and really not do what you should do, well, we changed that from $250 a day to $250 a year. And so that's been very impressive. I'll give you a good example of just how those lobbyists are aware of what's going on. A friend of mine that's a lobbyist up there. And by the way, there is a place and a purpose for lobbyists. Don't think there is a place and a purpose for lobbyists. It's in the manner of which they do it. There should be rules and regulations. A friend of mine that was a lobbyist before I got up there knew it. We were walking out to at the same time, and it was lunch. I'm going to walk across the street to get something, a bite to eat. And of course, I'll say now, all I ate was salad, Ellen. So anyway, it was a $6 or $7 meal. And so we're going up and we're paying. I'm in front of him, and I said, I'll get this. Oh no, no. He said, I don't even want to buy yours. You don't need to buy mine. Our firm has made a point to stay away from it unless it's pre-approved by the Ethics Commission. I thought, whoa, you know, we've made a big change here. So that happened during the regular session. So that's some positive, immediate impacts that you're seeing. There was some question about us, about the lobbyists, not allowing them. If you've been up there, there were some times when you literally could not walk through the hallway. That's changed now. Any lobbyist, you or anyone can come see me at any point in time. There's a procedure, protocol. You go sign in, check in, and you come see me, or see you, however you want to do it. You would normally do that anyway because you wouldn't know where my office is. So they're doing that. So now you don't see those people standing in the hallway stopping you you have to go through 25, 30 people just to get to the meeting. So that's been a very positive atmosphere, very positive change. We actually gave the Ethics Commission some teeth this year, or during that special session. We budgeted a percentage for them, so they have a percentage every year. You know, what good is the Ethics Commission if they're not funded and cannot do what they need to do? There's a guarantee in the budget that they will be funded so that they can do their job. So that is done, and that was a good bill. We stopped. This was probably this was one of the nights. I think we spent 2 nights in special session there till 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. This particular bill was to stop the money going through the payroll checks for the unions. This was the day that we stayed all day until, I think, I looked at the clock and it was 10 till 3 in the morning. We voted on that. And basically that's where we stopped the A-vote money from AEA going through the payroll checks that you and I are paying for. We did the dues are legal. There's no problem with dues. And unfortunately, many teachers today think we put in to stop all of it, and they can't do any of it. Dues are legal. But unfortunately, that's what the AEA Journal does, is give out misinformation and those type of things, and they don't give accurate. It's amazing. I get it. And I'm sitting there reading, and I'm there. And I look at it and I'm telling them, I said, that's not true. I was there. That's not the way it happened. But the only tell is a stir the pot type thing. We stopped the A vote. The A vote is the money that goes straight to political campaigns. That particular night at 10:03, we're getting in the elevator, and the elevator's full. There's 5 or 6 of us in there. And one guy gets in, he's the last one, and his comment was, well, it looks like I'm going to have to get a part-time job. The other guy says, what in the world for? He said, we just cut all my campaign money out. So just remember that as I finish telling the story, because that's what happens. That money was going to people, and as that money went to them, they were getting some return in all the way around in the circle. And I'll get to that in just a moment. We passed a bill where you can't be a teacher or a state employee and be a representative at the same time, for the simple fact that you're dealing with budget, you're dealing with your own salary increase. That will take effect at the end of this term. For instance, there are some good folks that are actually teachers. Donnie Chastain, Representative Donnie Chastain is a coach. He voted for this. He was supportive of this. You know, that's pretty big. So at the end of 4 years, he's going to either be a coach or he's going to be a representative. Now, there are others, a state trooper, some other teachers. Now, they will be able to run for office, my understanding. If they win, then they can quit their job with the state or teaching. And if they lose, they can continue their teaching. So I thought that was the best way to do it, to give them that 4-year period to do that transition. That was a busy, sounds like it went quick, but that was a very busy week, especially to be lead Tuscaloosa on our first 2 or 3 days of, I guess, orientation. Leave Tuscaloosa and go straight to Montgomery into that fire den. So it was a pretty interesting week, but I think it greatly prepared me for the regular session. Regular session, you know, this has been a difficult year for city and state and county, and of course you know what's going on now on the national level, but budgeting has been a very difficult thing. We basically had to say no to a lot of people, unfortunately, and the sad part about it is a lot of those things that we said no really should have been getting some money, and then there were some that should have never gotten it from the beginning with. So we're having to bring it back down to a level that we can continue to fund. And fortunately, someone in the past passed the bill where you have to have a balanced budget. So we're very fortunate for that, because had that not been the case, we'd be sitting today in the state where the federal government is. So fortunately, that's the case. This year, and as you know, it's been a very, very good year for the Republicans. And during that transition, there was a new Speaker of the House, a new Senate Pro Tem, and there are a lot of things that came out. Senate Pro Tem, while we were in session, I think he had 4 employees in the Senate. They found close to 30 employees in the Senate from the Democratic Senate Pro Tem. Some $120,000 a year. And it took a while to find all that. That's pretty abusive.
Right.
Yeah, and whenever you can go from 30 to 4, so there's been some huge cuts just under the House roof there in the Senate and the House. So there were some people that actually went up there and meant business. And there's been some good positive things. Some of the bills that we addressed this year, of course, one of the ones that we received some grief on, I guess you might say, is we addressed the illegal immigration. It's actually, I believe, in courts, going through the court system now, and there may be some tweaking to it. I'm not sure how it will turn out. it's the sad part about it. Unfortunately, we as a state have to even address it, rather than the federal government not addressing that. It's unfortunate that we have to worry about it here. But will it be tweaked? It may be tweaked. It may be outlawed. Who knows? But basically, most of the controversial things that we passed this year went straight to a lawsuit. So, and that's just their rebuttal to it. So we'll just have to see how that plays out. Rolling budget. Many of you have heard me speak about the rolling budget we passed with the education budget. I once said that was the most important bill that we passed, but it's the second most important. I'll tell you what the first one is a little down. But the rolling budget, basically, you know, in the last, counting this year, 11 years, we've been in the education 6 years. Is that right? Including this year, 6 years in proration, I believe it is. And what's happened because of that, the budget was, Benjamin, you know, I've heard you and I have talked about it before y'all could get any one of them, because they're in the control, not the Republicans prior to this year. The budget basically was made the last day in the wee hours of the night. Where did the number come from? Out of the sky. I mean, that's where it is. And hopefully the money will come in. And if it didn't come in, what do? You go in proration. 2 months, 6 months, 10 months down throughout the year. So that's the way the budget was basically being handled. This rolling budget will take the past 15 years and average those 15 years. And that will be the budget for the education system. It brings a new standard to a point where for any money that comes in over that budget will go to a fund that will be used if those years, if it drops. And it's for the education system. It may be used also for raises, whatever the case may be. Material in the classroom, that's another area that we did this year, material or classroom supplies. We passed $1.5 million this year to go into the classroom. Last 4 years, they're not received any money to go into the classroom. So that's not a lot when you divide it. I believe the number is around $135 per classroom. It's $135 a teacher doesn't take out of their pocket. So we don't want the teacher to have to do that. We want to be, I believe it's our responsibility to supply what they need. Hopefully we'll get to a point where that will be more priority than some of the things we've had to do away with and deal with. We're trying to get our back into perspective, everything back into perspective as most of us would want it to be. Healthcare incentive. Small business, we passed a bill for healthcare incentives. Small businesses can deduct 200% of what they pay in premiums for their insurance. Not only the business, but the employee can too as well. So the employer and the employee can deduct 200% of what they pay on their state income tax. That can be significant to a working family. Photo ID, we addressed photo ID. We dealt with that. We dealt with that a day. And I don't really understand why, but we're requiring a photo ID for we're requiring, it will not be create this election. I'm not sure exactly when it takes place, but the photo ID will be required in the future. Of course, that went to, I believe, lawsuit, so we'll have to deal with that as well. We stopped the drop program. Some of you may know about the drop program. Boy, I learned a lot about it, more than I want to know. But drop program was intended 10 years ago and was basically promoted for the classroom teacher. Oh, how we changed in that 10 years. You literally had to go down 1,200 names before you got to the first classroom teacher. The first 50 people in the drop program had $30 million. We're having to pay a percentage to every one of those according to how much money they have. it was estimated that it was costing the state, unlike some people say it was revenue neutral, was $60 to $70 million a year. Unfortunately, there were teachers and others that are in the working, everyday working class people that it was designed for, got cut out of it. It was stopped. From nothing but greed and abuse, in my opinion. And it's sad. It's very, very sad. When you have a teacher call you squalling, crying, and they're 3 weeks away, a month away. I tell you what, that's a tough call now. I mean, that's a difficult call. But when do you stop it? So we had to come up with a date to stop it. And the sad part about it is the first two people in it, as far as I know, they're not state employees. Someone correct me if they know different, but you had Paul Hubbard and Joe Reed, the top two, $1.3 and $1.4 million. And that's just, and if you'll remember me telling you about the money going to A vote, all right, here's the circle. The money from A vote goes to the ones that they want elected. Those that they get elected are the ones that do what they need to do to benefit them, to put them, they're number one and number two in the drop program. It's nothing but a circle. Make you sick. I mean, it will. I want to go back just a minute to the payroll deduction. For somebody that, I thought I pretty much have seen a lot in serving in office. That first week that I failed to mention just a minute ago during special session, while we were doing the AEA vote for a vote to stop it, I literally, and I was, it made me sick, just really sick, to sit there and to see the chairman of AEA sitting in the middle front row on the phone talking to the Democratic leader sitting here for hours, and they're telling each other how to vote, I presume, and what to do for hours. I'm sure they're not talking about their next vacation trip. That was eye-opening, and I realized right then that, boy, if I got myself into something. So that's all I'll say about that. Children First bill. We passed the Children's First bill. Many of you know that today when a teacher is charged with doing something they shouldn't be doing, there's a process that they go through. Many times it takes 10 months to a year. They're on the payroll of your local school board. The school board's having to pay for that teacher for that period of time. Not only for that teacher, they're having to pay for the substitute teacher. So they're paying two salaries, maybe 1.5. I'm not sure what they pay substitute teachers. Plus the attorney's fees. Well, this children's, and what was happening, I don't think it was happening in this area, but there were some areas up in part of the state that you would have, say, a bus driver go AWOL. Just didn't show up for work. And a week later they come back and they want to go through that process to challenge it. Well, they just decided not to come back to work. But they knew if they came back and challenged it, they had 8-10 months to go through the system, and the school board had to pay them for that period of time while they were at another job. That was happening. But I can tell you that now with what we passed with the Student First bill, that there's, I believe it's 60 days, there will be a decision made on whether the charge is correct or not correct. So hopefully it's a cost savings that will give some teeth to those that are in charge and be able to move on and take care of it. And during that whole time, who's suffering? The children in that class. So we're trying to put the children first and make sure that they have the teacher there that has them at their heart and them at the top of the list of what they were there for. And I told you just a minute ago the rolling budget was the second most important. This is first most important in my opinion. We passed a bill to prevent abortions after 20 weeks. And I think that is the most important bill. Had it been up to me, we would have eliminated it, but of course that's gone to the court system. But that was we can do it one step at a time. And after we passed that bill, there's no abortions in the state of Alabama after 20 weeks. That bill would have saved, had it been in place the year before, 75 or 72, I don't remember the number of children the year before that fell after the 20 weeks. And we debated that a day and a half, and I'm proud to say that I did make a motion on that to vote cloture, and we voted on it and moved on, and that was that. So, state employees. The state employees and teachers, we did have to increase their part of the RSA retirement system 2.5%. That 2.5% was not what we wanted to do, but it was the only choice we had. You and I, state taxpayers, put in $1 billion, just shy of $1 billion. That's one with a B. We've been putting in the 300–400 million. This year was close to $1 billion. There wasn't any more. I mean, that's it. It's our responsibility to make sure there's money for them to be paid when they retire. That's a very difficult thing because there are a lot of people, and this is something I asked for you to do. Here's something else I asked for you to do. There are a lot of people who work for this state that are not sure. They think that the state retirement system is going good. It's less than 75% funded. That's after we put $1 billion in. That's like you looking at your child's checking account at college at the end of the year, and she doesn't have a bounced check. Well, baby, you did good. You don't have any bounced checks. That looks good. Well, you don't know that Daddy's been sending money to it the whole time. And that's why it's even at that level, it's because you and I have been putting money in that we shouldn't have to put in. We should be putting 5%. I think the number ended up somewhere around 16, 17%, whatever the $900 million ended up being. But it's a lot of money. $35 billion in the system. So, you know, and I guess the thing we're kind of getting hit because we did it. What makes me mad is the ones that were doing the investment was the one that wasn't investing it right, put the pressure on us to have to do something. I mean, that's where it falls in line, and I'm going to address that in just a few minutes. But one thing I want you to know about Houston County, too. Houston County was using this example. This is about another bill that we did and looking for saving money for our court system. Houston County was used, and of course I was up there and I talked about it and used it, and Paul DeMarco, he's a representative of Montgomery, and I were talking back and forth down at the well, and he used, as well as I did, Houston County as a perfect example of how the indigent attorneys are being used. Judge Anderson, you and I talked about that. In the, maybe you started it. You started that 20 years ago? How long?
What, 20 years ago?
You're not that old, huh?
10 years ago?
Well, it was started, Judge Anderson started it, and you got some
And Jerry White.
Okay, we won't give everybody credit. What did Carla, you told me this was, I think it was you, I don't remember the numbers, but it's been like $2 million savings per year.
Average $860,000 per year for the past 8 years.
Okay, that's what it was. It was, I couldn't remember, but almost $750,000 per year. We passed a bill I'll be honest with you, I don't know if it passed the Senate. We in the House passed that bill, I think it did. We passed a bill where the entire state does that. And let me tell you, there were some people in Jefferson County that didn't like it because they were paying, but this has the potential of saving the state $23 million. That was the number used. And we were an example of what we were doing, and it was used to go across the state. So that's something that Mark, Judge, y'all done, and hopefully will pay off in the state in the long run. You know, there's always people that don't care for things, but I think we have been a good example in that, and hopefully the state will benefit from that down the road. Things to come. I mentioned to you about the retirement system. Retirement system is, there are a lot of people completely confused about the retirement system as far as the funding, as I said before. I can't give you the exact numbers with the general retirement, but the Teachers Education Retirement Board, there are 14 members on that board. Of those 14, you have Bronner, Hubbard, Morton, he'll soon go off, and then there's one other, and then there are 10 retired teachers. Of those 10, 2 of those are support personnel. They're handling $35 billion. And as I said, it's not performing. Yes, we're in a bad economy. Yes, we are. But that's why you have people on that board that know how to hedge, I guess is the best way to say it. You don't put all your money in something that has to have a great economy to make money. You've got to hedge it where in times like this, at least you're not losing any. We're not making the money we should be making on the money that's there. That's why we're having to pay that $1 billion. I foresee a debate on changing that board structure to require people or make appointments to people that have experience, that can bring something to the table, that when they leave, there's questions being asked. Warren Buffett doesn't surround himself with yes people. He brings people in to make him think, question, and they work things out and try to make money with his money. I want that board to make as much money as possible, so you and I don't have to put $1 billion in it. That's my goal. I don't really care who's on it. I want somebody on it that knows how to make money, because we all benefit from it in the long run. The next 3 years, hopefully, will be as enjoyable as this first one. I will tell you another way you can be proactive. A lot of things can change in 3 years. Today, as I see it, it will not be in the next election, which I don't really think about it, but I've read it, heard it, so I want to repeat it. I was asked to let everyone know what the opinion is throughout the state. Next election won't be, for those of you that are in office, won't be, your problem won't be facing a Democrat, possibly. It's going to be a Democrat disguised as a Republican in the runoff, in the primary. So be aware of that. Look out for that. And let me tell you this, I have thoroughly enjoyed it. I hope I have not taken too long. I will take any questions. You know where I am. If you need me, please call. Helen's good at answering phones. Say, here's a cell number, just call him. You know, so, but I want to tell you, thank you for allowing me to represent you.